Guys, I really don't understand how anybody could actually live in Chicago. It is baffling, guys, how the people in Chicago actually complained about Lori Lightfoot and then actually go out there and vote for someone worse than Lori Lightfoot, Brandon Johnson. Man, these people, man, they must be very, very uneducated when it comes to policy, because Brandon Johnson is a disaster. It is a shame what is going on in the streets of Chicago, guys. I mean, teenagers are just running around the streets and destroying businesses. And what's happening to them? Pretty much nothing. You know, Brandon Johnson has excused this behavior before when teenagers, probably like a month ago, were downtown destroying cars and stuff like that. He said, hey, these kids just don't have nothing to do. He made an excuse for them. You should not be making excuses for this type of behavior. Brandon Johnson has also prioritized illegal aliens over the citizens of his city. He's put them first. But hey, you guys in Chicago voted for this. This is what you have. This is what happens when you actually vote progressive, which is really regressive. I don't even know why they actually call them progressives. Well, let's go ahead and get into this, guys. Check this out. Chicago police finally make large number of arrests during teen mass rampage. And we're mainly talking about a 7-Eleven man that was just completely destroyed. I mean, we actually got a video clip here, guys. We actually got to play it. I mean, what actually persuaded these kids to go into this 7-Eleven and just destroy it? Where are their parents? I mean, just late at night. And we're not talking about, you know, just like 3 or 4. We're talking about like hundreds. But now they arrested like 40 of them. But guess what? They pretty much got off. Here we go. Let's go ahead and read this, guys. For the last several years, the Chicago Police Department has engaged in a policy of, quote, hands off. Because remember, Lori Lightfoot, I believe it was Lori Lightfoot, that came out and said, hey, if the police actually see somebody running away with something or driving away, they can't pursue them. Yeah, that's pretty dumb. But anyway, it goes on. It says, as huge groups of hundreds of teens and young adults rampage through neighborhoods, looting stores, vandalizing cars, fighting with each other, and even shooting people. But on Sunday, police reversed that policy and actually made dozens of arrests during one such mob scene. Last week, the CPD made about 40 arrests as a large group of teens again targeted an area along Roosevelt Road in the city's South Loop Business District. And look at this picture here, guys. This right here is the 7-Eleven right there. And they just destroyed it. They just destroyed it, man. It was the largest number of arrests since 61 were arrested during a mob rampage in July of 2021, according to CWB Chicago. Still, a mere 40 arrests made only a small dent in the mob of some 400 teens carousing through the area and totally trashing a 7-Eleven convenience store in the process. Why were they doing this? I'm pretty sure Brandon Johnson is going to say, hey, they were just hungry. I mean, this is just unacceptable, guys. But let's go ahead and listen to this news clip here and watch this. Let's play it.
Chaos outside a South Loop 7-Eleven Sunday night. The crowd seen here rushing out of the store with their arms full of items, some throwing them in the air. Inside the store, aisles were ravaged and ransacked. Police say now 40 people, mostly teens, are facing misdemeanor charges as a result of the so-called teen takeover.
We haven't arrested people like that, but this group got so out of hand that we had no choice.
Alvin Jackson saw the crowd at Roosevelt and Canal grow from a few dozen to a few hundred.
Just a few kids, then it got thicker and thicker and thicker, and it kept coming and kept coming and kept coming.
Alvin says at first things appeared to be peaceful. Then a small group of teenagers started to block traffic and attempt to break into stores.
Throwing the bottles, jumping on people's cars, trying to start fights. and trying to run into stores and stuff like that.
Police say once the crowd got out of hand, officers had no choice but to make arrests.
Yeah, but y'all voted for this. Y'all voted for this, and you guys continue to vote for this. The people of Chicago vote for their own destruction. Parents aren't taking care of their kids at all. It says here, according to NBC5, most were charged with misdemeanors and immediately released. Just let them go. Though a select few were hit with gun charges. You know, in Illinois, they got very, very strict on gun laws, but still, they run around with guns. But the CPD certainly made an about face. In fact, according to CBS News, several CPD supervisors were heard encouraging officers to make arrests. Quote, let's be clear. For these kids running in the street, mass arrests, lock them up, a supervisor was heard saying, CBS added. Quote, if you're an officer, you should be putting hands on people and arresting them right now, not watching them walk by you, the supervisor reportedly added. Well, if Brandon Johnson was out there, you say, hey, don't mess with anybody. Don't mess with anybody, because that's the way Brandon Johnson is. He is pro-criminal. He is pro-criminal behavior. What about the owner of that 7-Eleven? What about he or she, I don't know who exactly owns that 7-Eleven. You just let these kids go. You arrest them, misdemeanor, slap on the wrist, see you later. Wow. Amazing, guys. Amazing that this continues to happen out there. It's amazing. It says here, community activists also tried to jump into action ahead of the appearance of the mob of teens. Seeing social media posts encouraging teens to gather in the area, activists say they began contacting businesses to close up and lock down to try and prevent damage to their best ability. And you know what? In that clip, it seemed to be mostly black teenagers. Black teenagers, man, embarrassing themselves. And you know what Democrats always say? Hey, white man fault. Guess what? Chicago run by Democrats, and it seems like mainly black Democrats, and they're not doing anything about this. You can't blame racism for something like this. I remember my band director, man, when I was in high school. He was a disciplinarian. Somebody act up, man, he would go and say, hey, you don't have any home training. And it's obvious that these kids here, they don't have any home training. They're out there acting a fool. And if they keep on this path, man, these kids are going to end up getting locked up. I mean, how do you have hundreds of teenagers out there in the streets destroying businesses? These mobs of teens have been causing havoc in Chicago for several years now, and little has been done to stop them. Just in April, a couple suffered injuries as groups of hundreds of teens rioted through the city's downtown Loop area. Also in April, 2 teens were shot by someone seemingly shooting randomly into the crowd of hundreds during 4 days of teen mob action. In May, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, a self-professed progressive, took office, but thus far have been unable to make a dent in the rising crime rates or put a stop to those mobs of teens terrorizing the city. Actually, you know what? It goes on here. It says, in fact, Johnson has scolded anyone critical of the mobs. In April, he was heard chastising the media and Chicago's weary residents for demonizing the mobs of teens. Yeah, he's all for this, man. But you guys voted for this. Quote, in no way do I condone the destructive activity we saw in the Loop and Lakefront this weekend, Johnson said after the 4 days of destruction wrought in April. It is unacceptable and has no place in our city. However, it is not constructive to demonize youth who have otherwise been starved of opportunities in their own communities. Wow. Wow. Meanwhile, Johnson has busied himself with looking to put $25 million in city funds to house illegal aliens and turning several of the city schools and colleges into shelters for illegal aliens. Even as up to 50 Chicagoans have been shot every weekend since he took office. Man, there you have it, guys. There you have it. 40 teenagers get arrested and just about all of them get released. There will be no consequences at all for these kids because Brandon Johnson says, hey, let's not demonize these kids. They're probably just hungry at 7-Eleven, so they just went in there, got some food, ransacked the place. Yeah, that is pathetic, man. That is really, really pathetic, man. But Chicago, you voted for this. That's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? Black and White Network fans, let us know what you think about all this in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And we will catch you next time.